Your mind is not broken. It's overloaded. Most of your stress is not coming from your life. It's coming from what you consume about life. Input determines output. Say it again. Input determines output. You scroll negativity for an hour. You compare yourself for 30 minutes. You replay mistakes for the rest of the night. And then you wonder why your mind feels chaotic. It's not about weakness. It's about discipline. You have a choice. Feed your mind garbage, or feed it growth. That's the key. Most mental chaos comes from unconscious input. Social media arguments. Highlight reels of other people's success. News cycles designed to trigger fear. Endless commentary. Endless comparison. You may think you're just checking updates, but your brain is absorbing everything. Input determines output. What you consume becomes your internal dialogue. What you repeat becomes your emotional state. What you focus on becomes your identity. Attention is power. Positive psychology proves this repeatedly. Where attention goes, emotion follows. Focus on problems, you amplify stress. Focus on solutions, you build control. Attention is power. If you scan for what's missing, you feel lack. If you scan for progress, you feel momentum. Same life, different focus. You have a choice. Overthink, or observe, react, or redirect. That's the key. Overthinking is just uncontrolled attention. You replay conversations. You imagine worst-case scenarios. You predict rejection before it happens. And every replay strengthens anxiety. Input determines output. If you mentally rehearse failure, you feel fear. If you mentally rehearse solutions, you feel strength. It's not about intelligence. It's about discipline. Starve distraction. Feed direction. Start with a mental audit. For 1 week, track what you consume. How many hours scrolling? How many conversations complaining? How much content that builds you? Be honest. Because awareness creates leverage. Attention is power. If your mornings begin with comparison, your day begins with insecurity. If your nights end with negativity, your sleep ends with tension. You don't need their permission to disconnect. You don't need validation to reduce access. You don't need approval to protect your mind. You have a choice. Unfollow what triggers comparison. Mute what provokes anger. Limit what drains focus. Starve distraction. Feed direction. Replace reactive scrolling with intentional learning. Instead of random input, choose structured growth. Instead of gossip, choose skill. Instead of noise, choose knowledge. 10 minutes of intentional reading beats 1 hour of unconscious scrolling. Input determines output. You cannot consume chaos and expect clarity. You cannot absorb negativity and expect peace. You cannot binge distraction and expect discipline. Attention is power. Here's the practical rule. If it doesn't strengthen you, reduce it. If it doesn't educate you, limit it. If it doesn't inspire execution, eliminate it. Simple, not easy, but necessary. You have a choice. Be entertained constantly, or be empowered intentionally. Every notification is a demand on your focus. Every comparison is a threat to your confidence. Every unnecessary input is a leak in your mental energy. And energy is limited. This is not about isolation. It's about filtration. Guard what enters your mind. Because once it enters, it echoes. Input determines output. When you starve distraction, something powerful happens. Your thoughts slow down. Your emotions stabilize. Your focus sharpens. You begin thinking your own thoughts again. That's the key. A quiet mind is not created by adding more techniques. It's created by removing excess noise. Starve distraction. Feed direction. Today, take one action. Delete one app. Silence one notification stream. Replace one scroll session with one learning session. Small shift, massive impact. Because what you repeatedly consume, you repeatedly become. Attention is power. Input determines output. Starve distraction. Feed direction. You've stopped feeding the noise. Now it's time to control the meaning behind what remains. Nothing has meaning until you assign it. Read that again. Nothing has meaning until you assign it. The event is neutral. The interpretation is powerful. And meaning creates emotion. Two people lose a job. One says, "I'm finished." The other says, "I'm free." Same event. Different meaning. Different outcome. Meaning creates emotion. You think the world is stressing you. It's not. It's the story you're telling yourself about the world. That's the key. Events don't create suffering. Interpretation does. A delayed text becomes, they don't respect me. A mistake becomes, I'm not good enough. A setback becomes, I always fail. And just like that, emotion follows interpretation. Meaning creates emotion. Positive psychology is clear about this. Your explanatory style shapes your resilience. Your narrative shapes your nervous system. If you label everything as permanent, personal, and catastrophic, you will feel powerless. If you label challenges as temporary, specific, and solvable, you will feel capable. Reframe to reclaim. You have a choice. Default to worst-case thinking. Or deliberately rewrite the story. That's the key. When stress hits, pause. Not later. Immediately. Pause before the meaning solidifies. Because once meaning locks in, emotion intensifies. Reframe to reclaim. Ask one powerful question. What else could this mean? Maybe the rejection is redirection. Maybe the criticism is instruction. Maybe the delay is preparation. You choose the story. Most people never question their first interpretation. They assume their thoughts are facts. They assume their feelings are truth. But feelings are responses to interpretation. Meaning creates emotion. If you tell yourself, this is unfair, you feel anger. If you tell yourself, this is feedback, you feel growth. Same event. Different story. It's not about sensitivity. It's about discipline. You don't need their permission to reinterpret an event. You don't need approval to change your narrative. You don't need validation to see strength in difficulty. You have a choice. Victim story, or growth story, collapse, or construct. That's the key. Here's the practical framework. When something negative happens, write down your first interpretation. Be honest, unfiltered. Then challenge it. Is it permanent? Is it personal? Is it exaggerated? Now rewrite it in a way that gives you power. Not delusion. Power. Reframe to reclaim. Instead of, I failed, say, I learned. Instead of, they rejected me, say, they weren't aligned. Instead of, this ruined everything, say, this adjusted my path. You choose the story, and the story determines the emotion. The emotion determines the action. The action determines the result. Meaning creates emotion. This is where most people lose control. They allow automatic thoughts to dictate emotional states. They react before reflecting. They suffer before questioning. You will not do that anymore. Pause, breathe, rewrite, shift from, why me? To, what now? Why me? Creates helplessness. What now? Creates movement. That's the key. Control the narrative, and you control the response. Control the response, and you control the direction. You have a choice. Let your first thought win. Or let your disciplined thought lead. This is not denial. It is selection. You are selecting the interpretation that strengthens you. Because it's not about circumstances. It's about discipline. Reframe to reclaim. Every challenge is neutral clay. Your interpretation shapes it into a weapon or a wound. You choose the story. And when you choose stronger stories consistently, something changes. Your anxiety lowers. Your confidence rises. Your resilience stabilizes. Because now you understand something powerful. The world doesn't control your emotions. Your meaning does. Meaning creates emotion. Reframe to reclaim. You choose the story. You've stopped feeding the noise. Now you've taken control of interpretation. Next, we go deeper. Because even with the right story, your attention must be trained. A quiet mind is not empty. It is trained. It is directed. It is focused. Most people think peace means removing thoughts. That's impossible. Peace comes from controlling where your attention goes. Focus creates calm. Say it again. Focus creates calm. Scattered attention creates scattered emotions. You check your phone mid-task. You switch tabs every 5 minutes. You half listen to conversations while thinking about something else. And then you wonder why your mind feels fragmented. It's not about intelligence. It's about discipline. You have a choice. Let your attention drift, or direct it deliberately. That's the key. Research in positive psychology and mindfulness is clear. Attention is a muscle. What you practice grows. If you practice distraction, you grow distraction. If you practice focus, you grow control. What you practice grows. High performers understand this. Athletes lock into the moment before competition. Surgeons narrow their attention during procedures. Elite performers eliminate irrelevant stimuli. They don't rely on mood. They rely on trained focus. Focus creates calm. When your mind is locked onto one task, anxiety decreases. Why? Because anxiety requires divided attention. It feeds on what if. It feeds on future projection. It feeds on scattered awareness. But when you focus fully on one task, there is no space for chaos. That's the key. A quiet mind is not achieved by escape. It is achieved by concentration. You don't need their permission to protect your focus. You don't need validation to ignore distractions. You don't need approval to disconnect. You have a choice. Multitask can feel busy, or single task can become effective. It's not about busyness. It's about discipline. One task. Full presence. Start small. 10 minutes. No phone. No switching tabs. No background noise designed to fragment attention. One task. Full presence. Your mind will resist. It will crave stimulation. It will search for novelty. It will invent reasons to check something. Good. That resistance is weakness leaving your system. What you practice grows. If you constantly interrupt yourself, you train impatience. If you constantly shift tasks, you train restlessness. If you constantly chase novelty, you train instability. Focus creates calm. Here's the rule. Finish what you start. Complete the paragraph. Complete the workout. Complete the conversation without checking your phone. Completion builds cognitive strength. Scattered attention weakens it. You have a choice. React to every notification, or respond to what matters. Every distraction you entertain rewires your brain for fragmentation. Every focused session rewires it for control. What you practice grows. Mindfulness is not mystical. It is mechanical. Notice when your mind wanders. Bring it back. Notice again. Bring it back again. Repetition builds regulation. Focus creates calm. You cannot build a quiet mind while practicing chaos. You cannot build emotional control while feeding distraction. It's not about personality. It's about discipline. One task. Full presence. During conversations, listen fully. During work, work fully. During rest, rest fully. Divided presence creates diluted results. Full presence creates power. That's the key. Your attention is your most valuable resource. Where it goes, your energy follows. Where your energy goes, your identity forms. If your attention belongs to algorithms, your mind will feel hijacked. If your attention belongs to intention, your mind will feel steady. You don't need their permission to silence notifications. You don't need approval to step away from noise. You have a choice. Train your focus daily, or live in permanent distraction. 10 minutes becomes 20, 20 becomes an hour, and slowly, your mind stabilizes. Because now it obeys you. Focus creates calm. What you practice grows. One task. Full presence. You stopped feeding the noise. You controlled the meaning you assign. Now you've taken back your attention. Next, you must master what happens when emotion rises despite your focus. Your emotions are not the enemy. Your obedience to them is. Read that again. Your emotions are not the problem. Your automatic reaction is. Emotions are signals, not commands. Feel it. Don't become it. Most people live on emotional autopilot. They feel anger. They attack. They feel fear. They retreat. They feel insecurity. They overcompensate. No pause. No evaluation. No discipline. And that creates chaos. Feel it. Don't become it. An emotion is information. Anger signals a boundary. Fear signals uncertainty. Sadness signals loss. But signals are meant to be interpreted, not blindly obeyed. That's the key. You have a choice. React instantly, or respond intentionally. It's not about suppression. It's about discipline. Positive psychology teaches something powerful. When you label an emotion, you reduce its intensity. Name it to tame it. When you say, I am angry, the anger controls you. When you say, I notice anger, you create distance. That distance is power. Awareness weakens reaction. Most people never create that gap. They merge with the emotion. I am stressed. I am anxious. I am furious. No, you are experiencing stress. You are noticing anxiety. You are feeling anger. Feel it. Don't become it. When you become the emotion, you lose perspective. When you observe the emotion, you gain control. Pause creates power. Here is the discipline. When triggered, do nothing for 5 seconds. Not 1. 5. Breathe slowly. Lower your shoulders. Relax your jaw. Then label it. This is frustration. This is fear. This is embarrassment. Name it to tame it. You will feel the intensity drop. Not disappear. Drop. That's enough. Awareness weakens reaction. High performers understand this. In negotiations, they don't snap. In conflict, they don't explode. Under pressure, they don't panic. They pause. Pause creates power. When someone criticizes you, your ego will flare. You'll want to defend. You'll want to interrupt. You'll want to win. You have a choice. Protect your pride, or protect your peace. That's the key. The first reaction is emotional. The second response is strategic. Train yourself to live in the second. Feel it. Don't become it. This is not weakness. It is control. Anyone can react. Few can regulate. Regulation builds respect. When you stay calm under pressure, people trust you. When you respond slowly, people listen. When you refuse to escalate, tension dissolves. Awareness weakens reaction. Here's another practical rule. Delay digital responses. Never reply to emotional messages instantly. Never send a text while heated. Never post while triggered. Pause creates power. Give yourself space. Because time weakens impulse. It's not about sensitivity. It's about discipline. If you obey every feeling, you become predictable. If you observe every feeling, you become powerful. You don't need their permission to stay calm. You don't need validation to slow down. You don't need approval to remain silent. You have a choice. Impulse, or intention, chaos, or control. Feel it. Don't become it. Emotional mastery doesn't mean you feel less. It means you react less. And that difference changes everything. A quiet mind is not emotionless. It is disciplined. It feels fully, but responds carefully. Name it to tame it. Awareness weakens reaction. Pause creates power. You stopped feeding the noise. You controlled the meaning you assign. You disciplined your attention. Now you are learning to detach from emotional impulses. Next, we strengthen your mind even further, by rewiring it toward strength instead of scarcity. Your brain is biased toward threat. It scans for what's wrong. It searches for what's missing. It magnifies what could go bad. That bias kept your ancestors alive. But today, it keeps you anxious. Gratitude grounds you. Say it again. Gratitude grounds you. When you intentionally focus on what is working, your nervous system shifts. The brain cannot hold deep appreciation and intense anxiety at the same strength simultaneously. One weakens the other. You have a choice. Scan for lack, or scan for strength. That's the key. Most people rehearse problems daily. They repeat what went wrong. They replay what didn't happen. They obsess over what they don't have. And what you rehearse becomes dominant. What you appreciate appreciates. This is not motivational language. It's neurological training. Studies in positive psychology show that daily gratitude practice increases long-term well-being, resilience, and emotional stability. Why? Because attention rewires perception, and perception shapes reality. Gratitude grounds you. When you deliberately acknowledge what is stable, supportive, and strong in your life, your mind becomes less reactive. Less desperate, less chaotic. It's not about ignoring problems. It's about balancing perspective. It's not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about discipline. You don't need their permission to appreciate your life. You don't need validation to recognize progress. You don't need approval to focus on what is working. You have a choice. Complain automatically, or appreciate intentionally. That's the key. Here is the instruction. Every day, write down 3 specific wins. Not vague gratitude. Specific. Had a productive meeting. Completed my workout. Handled stress without reacting. Small wins count. Especially small wins. Document the good. When you document it, you reinforce it. When you reinforce it, you repeat it. What you appreciate appreciates. Most people dismiss small progress. They say, that's nothing. And that mindset kills momentum. Because if nothing is enough, nothing feels meaningful. Gratitude grounds you. When you acknowledge small progress, you train your brain to detect capability. Capability builds confidence. Confidence builds calm. That's the sequence. You have a choice. End your day replaying failure. Or end your day recognizing growth. One builds anxiety. The other builds resilience. Document the good. And here's the discipline. Do it even on bad days. Especially on bad days. If the day was difficult, Find one lesson. Find one strength you showed. Find one thing that didn't collapse. It's there. You just have to look. Gratitude is not passive. It is trained attention. And trained attention builds psychological strength. What you appreciate appreciates. If you constantly notice what's missing, your mind lives in scarcity. If you constantly notice what's working, your mind lives in abundance. Scarcity creates tension. Abundance creates steadiness. Gratitude grounds you. This doesn't make you soft. It makes you stable. Stable people perform better under pressure. Stable people think clearly during conflict. Stable people recover faster from setbacks. It's not about personality. It's about discipline. Write 3 wins daily. No excuses. 10 seconds each. Consistency matters more than intensity. Because repetition rewires identity. When you repeatedly acknowledge growth, you start seeing yourself as growing. When you repeatedly acknowledge strength, you start seeing yourself as capable. And identity shapes behavior. You don't need their permission to value your progress. You don't need applause to recognize effort. You have a choice. Dwell in deficiency, or build in gratitude. Gratitude grounds you. What you appreciate appreciates. Document the good. You've stopped feeding the noise. You've controlled your interpretation. You've disciplined your attention. You've detached from emotional impulses. Now you are building strength from within. But strength collapses if your environment constantly drains it. Next, you must learn to guard what you've built. You lock your doors at night. You secure your passwords. You protect your bank account. You insure your car. But you leave your mind wide open. Anyone can enter. Any opinion can stay. Any argument can take control. And then you wonder why you feel drained. Protect your peace. Say it again. Protect your peace. Your inner environment determines your outer performance. If your mind is cluttered, your decisions are cloudy. If your mind is agitated, your reactions are impulsive. If your mind is overloaded, your energy collapses. Energy is currency. Every unnecessary argument costs you. Every pointless debate drains you. Every hour of overexposure taxes you. Energy is currency, and most people spend it recklessly. You have a choice. Be available to everyone, or be valuable to yourself. That's the key. Constant availability destroys mental stability. If everyone has access to you, you have no space to think. If every notification demands attention, you have no control over focus. If every opinion influences you, you have no identity. Protect your peace. This is not about isolation. It is about boundaries. It's not about ego. It's about discipline. You don't need their permission to decline conversations. You don't need approval to exit drama. You don't need validation to be less accessible. You have a choice. Engage in chaos, or preserve clarity. Energy is currency. Look at where your energy leaks. Unnecessary group chats. Arguments that go nowhere. Explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Cut it. Guard your mind like gold. Because once your energy is gone, your discipline weakens. And once discipline weakens, your quiet mind disappears. Protect your peace. Here are the rules. Speak less. Not because you have nothing to say, but because not everything requires a response. Silence prevents escalation. Silence preserves authority. Silence protects energy. Reduce drama. Drama thrives on participation. If you stop reacting, it loses oxygen. If you stop engaging, it fades. You have a choice. Fuel it, or starve it. That's the key. Schedule silence. Not accidental silence. Intentional silence. 10 minutes daily. No phone. No conversation. No stimulation. Just breathing. Just thinking. Just being. Guard your mind like gold. Your inner environment must be curated. Who you talk to matters. What you watch matters. What you tolerate matters. If you allow negativity into your space repeatedly, you will normalize it. If you tolerate disrespect, you will internalize it. Energy is currency. Spend it where it grows. Invest it where it multiplies. Withdraw it from what drains. You don't need their permission to set boundaries. You don't need approval to prioritize mental health. You don't need validation to walk away. You have a choice. Be liked by everyone, or be aligned with yourself. That's the key. A quiet mind is fragile without protection. You build it by controlling input, by reframing meaning, by disciplining attention, by detaching from emotional impulses, by practicing gratitude. Now you must defend it. Protect your peace. Guard your mind like gold. Because peace is not automatic. It is maintained. Energy is currency. Spend it wisely. Protect it fiercely. Direct it intentionally. And when you do, something powerful happens. Your calm becomes stable. Your focus becomes sharp. Your decisions become deliberate. You are no longer reacting to the world. You are responding from strength. That is the art of a quiet mind. And it only survives when you choose, every day, to protect it. Thinking is not progress. Planning is not progress. Worrying is definitely not progress. Overthinking feels productive. It feels responsible. It feels like you're preparing. But it produces nothing. Action quiets doubt. Say it again. Action quiets doubt. Rumination is mental rehearsal without execution. You replay the scenario. You analyze every angle. You imagine every failure. And at the end, nothing changes. Your problem remains. Your anxiety increases. Your confidence drops. Because clarity does not come from thinking more. It comes from doing something. That's the key. You have a choice. Loop the thought. Or move your feet. It's not about intelligence. It's about discipline. Positive psychology shows that progress builds confidence. Not perfection. Progress. Small wins reduce anxiety because they prove capability. Movement builds momentum. When you sit still and overthink, doubt grows. When you move, doubt weakens. Action quiets doubt. Here's the truth. Most overthinking is fear disguised as preparation. You say you're figuring it out. But you're really avoiding discomfort. It's not about confusion. It's about discipline. Do something decisive. When stuck, take one measurable step immediately. Send the email. Make the call. Write the first paragraph. Do the first set. Not tomorrow. Now. Because motion changes emotion. Movement builds momentum. When you act, your brain receives proof. Proof that you are capable. Proof that you are proactive. Proof that you are not powerless. And proof reshapes identity. You don't need their permission to start. You don't need validation to take a small step. You don't need certainty to move. You have a choice. Wait for perfect clarity, or create clarity through action. That's the key. Overthinking multiplies scenarios. Action eliminates them. If you're worried about a presentation, rehearse once and deliver. If you're anxious about fitness, train today. If you're stuck in a career decision, apply somewhere. Do something decisive. You will never think your way out of fear completely. But you can act your way out of paralysis. Action quiets doubt. Here's a rule. When anxiety rises, shrink the task. Don't focus on the entire project. Focus on the next step. Not the marathon. The next mile. Not the entire book. The next page. Movement builds momentum. Every small completion rewires your brain for confidence. Every avoided action reinforces insecurity. That's the pattern. You have a choice. Reinforce fear, or reinforce strength. It's not about talent. It's about discipline. Schedule action blocks. Time where execution is mandatory. No analysis. No debate. No endless research. Just output. Because output builds identity. When you repeatedly execute, you start seeing yourself as someone who executes. That identity changes everything. Action quiets doubt. Notice this. The days you act boldly, you sleep better. The days you procrastinate, your mind races at night. Why? Because unfinished decisions drain energy. Energy is currency, and indecision is expensive. Do something decisive. It does not have to be massive. It has to be measurable. One call, one workout, one proposal, one difficult conversation. Small, clear, completed. Movement builds momentum. Once you start moving, clarity follows. You adjust mid-action. You learn mid-process. You refine mid-effort. But you cannot refine what you never begin. That's the key. Overthinking feels safe. Action feels risky. But only one produces results. You don't need their permission to move forward. You don't need approval to try. You don't need guarantees to begin. You have a choice. Analyze forever. Or act once. Action quiets doubt. Movement builds momentum. Do something decisive. You build a quiet mind by controlling input, by reframing meaning, by disciplining attention, by regulating emotion, by protecting your inner environment. Now you understand the final principle. Peace is not passive. It is built through disciplined action. Next, we elevate this further. Because action is powerful, but identity is permanent. Optimism is not delusion. It is not fantasy. It is not pretending problems don't exist. Optimism is discipline. Say it again. Optimism is discipline. Most people think optimism is a personality trait. Something you were born with. Something reserved for the naturally cheerful. That's false. Optimism is trained expectation. It is the decision to expect strength from yourself, even under pressure. You have a choice. Expect collapse, or expect capability. That's the key. Psychology calls it learned optimism. Your brain develops a pattern, a way of explaining events. When something goes wrong, you tell yourself a story. This always happens to me. I never get it right. I'm just bad at this. That language is not harmless. It programs weakness. It's not about bad luck. It's about discipline. Optimism is discipline. Your explanatory style determines your resilience. If you believe failure is permanent, you stop trying. If you believe struggle is personal, you lose confidence. If you believe setbacks are pervasive, you generalize defeat. But you can condition your explanation. You can retrain the script. Expect strength. Here's the rule. Replace permanent language with temporary framing. Never say, always. Never say, never. Those words trap you. Instead say, this is temporary. This is specific. This is solvable. This is temporary. Say it again. This is temporary. Bad presentation. Temporary. Missed opportunity. Temporary. Financial pressure. Temporary. Emotional setback. Temporary. You have a choice. Turn the moment into an identity. Or treat it as an event. That's the key. Optimism does not deny difficulty. It reframes duration and control. Instead of, I failed. Say, I'm learning. Instead of, this is a disaster. Say, this is feedback. Instead of, I can't handle this. Say, I will grow through this. Expect strength. Because what you expect, you move toward. If you expect collapse, you hesitate. If you expect strength, you act. Optimism is discipline, and discipline requires repetition. Every time your mind drifts toward catastrophic thinking, interrupt it. Ask, is this permanent? Is this personal? Is this pervasive? Most of the time, the answer is no. It's not about reality. It's about interpretation. That's the leverage point. You don't need their permission to believe in your capacity. You don't need approval to hold a stronger narrative. You don't need proof before you choose empowering language. You have a choice. Feed doubt, or train expectation. This is temporary. Condition this response until it becomes automatic. Traffic jam. Temporary. Criticism. Temporary. Awkward moment. Temporary. Your nervous system calms when it detects an endpoint. Temporary problems feel survivable. Permanent problems feel crushing. Optimism is discipline. It is not loud. It is quiet certainty. A steady belief that effort will produce growth. Learn to speak to yourself like a coach. Firm. Grounded. Forward-focused. Not naive. Constructive. When something breaks, ask, what can this teach me? How can this make me stronger? What is still within my control? Expect strength. Because resilience expands when you assume capability. Every time you reframe, you build mental endurance. Every time you resist catastrophic language, you weaken anxiety. Movement builds momentum, and expectation directs movement. If you expect things to improve through effort, you apply effort. If you expect failure, you withdraw. That's the pattern. It's not about personality. It's about discipline. Optimism is discipline. Train it daily. Audit your language. Correct exaggerations. Replace absolutes. Reinforce temporariness. This is temporary. You build a quiet mind by controlling input. By protecting your energy. By taking decisive action. By choosing response over reaction. Now you train expectation. Because a quiet mind without optimism becomes passive. And optimism without discipline becomes fantasy. You are building neither. You are building controlled confidence. Expect strength. This is temporary. Optimism is discipline. And when discipline shapes your expectations, resilience becomes automatic. You no longer panic at pressure. You prepare. You no longer collapse at setbacks. You adjust. You no longer dramatize obstacles. You outlast them. That is the power of trained optimism. And now that you can protect your peace, act decisively, and expect strength under pressure. It's time to integrate everything. You are addicted to noise. Constant input. Constant updates. Constant stimulation. And then you say you can't think clearly. Silence is not emptiness. It is reset. Stillness restores power. Say it again. Stillness restores power. Most people fear silence. Because in silence, there is no distraction. No scrolling. No validation. No escape. Only you. Your thoughts. Your patterns. Your truth. You have a choice. Run from it. Or train in it. That's the key. High achievers do not just schedule meetings. They schedule thinking time, quiet time, strategic stillness. Because silence builds clarity. When the noise drops, patterns emerge. Solutions surface. Creativity rises. Your brain needs space. Without space, it reacts. With space, it reflects. It's not about laziness. It's about discipline. Stillness restores power. You don't need their permission to disconnect. You don't need approval to be unavailable. You don't need validation to protect quiet time. Energy is currency, and noise is expensive. Every notification fragments attention. Every interruption weakens depth. Every unnecessary input crowds insight. Silence builds clarity. Here is the instruction. 15 minutes daily. Non-negotiable. No phone. No music. No podcast. No conversation. Sit. Breathe. Observe. Sit. Breathe. Observe. That's it. You are not trying to achieve anything. You are training awareness. Watch your thoughts without chasing them. Notice impulses without acting on them. Observe emotions without amplifying them. Stillness restores power. At first, it will feel uncomfortable. Your mind will demand stimulation. It will search for distraction. It will create urgency. Do nothing. You have a choice. React, or remain. That's the key. This practice strengthens restraint, and restraint strengthens authority. When you can sit with discomfort without escaping it, you become dangerous in the best way. Unshakable. Silence builds clarity. Ideas will rise when you stop forcing them. Creative solutions appear when pressure disappears. Your nervous system resets when input stops. That is not theory. It is biology. Constant stimulation keeps you in reaction mode. Stillness moves you into control mode. It's not about inactivity. It's about intentional recovery. Stillness restores power. Look at your day. Where is the silence? Not accidental silence. Not exhausted silence. Deliberate silence. Scheduled silence. If it is not scheduled, it will not happen. You have a choice. Consume endlessly, or create space. That's the key. In those 15 minutes, ask nothing of yourself. Just observe. Notice tension in your body. Notice repetitive thoughts. Notice unresolved emotions. Awareness precedes control. If you cannot observe your mind, you cannot lead it. Silence builds clarity, and clarity strengthens decisions. You built discipline through action. You built resilience through optimism. You built protection through boundaries. Now you build depth through stillness. Sit, breathe, observe. This is where identity stabilizes. Because a quiet mind is not built only in motion. It is reinforced in stillness. Stillness restores power. The strongest presence in any room is not the loudest. It is the calmest. The one who does not rush to speak. The one who does not react impulsively. The one who listens fully. That strength is trained in silence. You don't need their permission to pause. You don't need approval to slow down. You don't need validation to protect your mental space. You have a choice. Fill every gap with noise. Or fill your mind with awareness. Silence builds clarity. Stillness restores power. Sit, breathe, observe. When you practice this daily, something shifts. Your reactions slow. Your thoughts sharpen. Your emotions stabilize. You stop being controlled by the external world. You become anchored internally. That is strength. That is discipline. That is the foundation of an unshakable mind. You have trained your input. You have trained your action. You have trained your expectation. Now you have trained your stillness. And when action, optimism, protection, and stillness work together, you don't just have a quiet mind. You have a powerful one. This is the integration. This is control. This is the identity you were building all along. And now, you are ready to live it. A quiet mind is not a tactic. It is not a trick. It is not a temporary strategy you use when things get hard. It is an identity. Calm is who you are. Say it again. Calm is who you are. If calm is something you try to do, you will abandon it under pressure. If calm is who you are, you will default to it under pressure. That's the key. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your identity. If you see yourself as reactive, you will react. If you see yourself as anxious, you will search for reasons to worry. If you see yourself as overwhelmed, you will collapse when tested. But when you see yourself as composed, you act accordingly. Act like the person. Identity-based habits sustain discipline. You don't work out because you feel motivated. You work out because you are an athlete. You don't manage your emotions because the situation is easy. You manage them because you are disciplined. It's not about mood. It's about discipline. Calm is who you are. You have a choice. Cling to an old identity, or construct a stronger one. That's the key. Most people try to change behavior without changing identity. They say, I want to be calmer. No, say, I am calm. Language matters. Instruction creates action. Identity creates consistency. Own the identity. Every morning, declare it out loud. I am disciplined. I am calm. I am in control. Again, I am disciplined. I am calm. I am in control. This is not affirmation fluff. This is identity conditioning. Your brain listens to repetition. What you declare repeatedly, you start to defend. And you defend your identity with action. Act like the person. When chaos hits, ask, what would a calm person do right now? Then do that. When criticism appears, ask, how would someone in control respond? Then respond that way. When pressure rises, ask, what does a disciplined mind choose here? Then choose it. Calm is who you are. You don't need their permission to redefine yourself. You don't need approval to outgrow your old patterns. You don't need validation to step into a stronger identity. You have a choice. Replay the past, or reinforce the future. That's the key. Identity eliminates negotiation. If you believe you are someone who protects their peace, you set boundaries automatically. If you believe you are someone who acts decisively, you stop procrastinating. If you believe you are someone who expects strength, you stop catastrophizing. Act like the person. It's not about personality. It's about discipline. When your identity shifts, your standards rise. You no longer ask, do I feel like it? You ask, is this aligned with who I am? That question changes everything. Calm is who you are. Not sometimes. Not when convenient. Always. Under pressure. Under criticism. Under uncertainty. Because identity sustains what motivation cannot. Review what you've built. You learned to control input. You protected your inner environment. You replaced rumination with action. You trained optimism. You embraced stillness. Those were behaviors. Now they become traits. Own the identity. If you slip, correct it immediately. Not with shame, with standards. A calm person recalibrates quickly. A disciplined person adjusts without drama. A person in control does not spiral. Act like the person. You have a choice. Call yourself overwhelmed, or call yourself capable. Call yourself anxious, or call yourself anchored. Call yourself reactive, or call yourself composed. That's the key. Your life follows your identity. And your identity follows your declarations and decisions. Calm is who you are. Say it until it feels natural. Act it until it becomes automatic. Defend it until it becomes permanent. This is not about suppressing emotion. It's about mastering response. It's not about being cold. It's about being controlled. It's not about perfection. It's about discipline. You have built the framework of an unshakable mind. Now you seal it with identity. Because when calm becomes who you are, not just what you practice, nothing external can destabilize you for long. You recover faster. You decide faster. You move with certainty. You don't just manage your mind. You lead it. Calm is who you are. Own the identity. And live like it.